It's summer in Nashville, Tennessee, and a local community is experiencing a lot of home break-ins. Somebody is stealing their stuff. A neighbor finally sees the crime in progress and calls police. Police officers get there, but the suspects flee. But they're not going to get very far, thanks in a large part to a border collie. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Tish, and I am so glad you're here. On my channel, we talk about history, mystery, true crime, and other stories. It was a late morning in the summer when Officer Mark Filden received a call from dispatch that a witness had called in after seeing two juveniles break into a nearby home. Now, this address was located in a community who had had a lot of break-ins over the last few months, and Officer Filden was anxious to get there to help solve the case. In addition, he lived close to this area, so he had a personal interest in it as well. Officer Filden radioed his partner to meet him at the home. He also asked dispatch to keep the witness on the line so they would know what was going on in real time. The witness said that the two boys had already taken two full hand loads out to their blazer, which was sitting in the driveway. Now, this home was very close to the county line. Nashville is located in Davidson County, but it was also very close to Robertson County. So Officer Filden went ahead and asked dispatch to make them aware just in case the suspects ran that direction. Earlier that day, as typical on a summer day in Nashville, it had begun to rain, but by the time they were on their way to this home, it had turned into an all-out thunderstorm, in fact, making it very hard for them to see through their windshield. Now, the home that Officer Filden was going to had a driveway that was about 75 feet off of the road. He signaled to his partner that they both should turn off their lights to try to be as inconspicuous as long as possible on their approach to the home. When they got to the house, there was a red blazer in the driveway, and in a few seconds later, a young man exited the home and, of course, immediately spotted the police cars. He immediately dropped the box he was carrying and ran back inside the house, tripping over his feet as he went. Because of the rainstorm, Officer Fielding could really only make out that the boy was wearing some tennis shoes. Officer Mark Field and his partner made their way inside the door. As the rain came down, making things more difficult, Officer Fielding couldn't help but think, there were raincoats in the car, but at that point it was too late. Officer Filden and his partner eased their way inside the front door of the home and took a quick look around inside. In the middle of the floor of the living room was a huge pile of unconnected electronics, which he hypothesized that the boys intended to take to the blazer. As they searched the house room by room, they discovered that the suspects were not there and had already gone out a back door. And right outside that door was a very heavily wooded area. They knew that eventually the suspects would have to come out of the woods onto one of the nearby streets, but the question is which street? There was no way to predict that, so they knew they were going to have to search for them in the forest. On top of that, there was not going to be enough time to call a canine unit in to assist in the search. And a helicopter wasn't going to be an option because of the thunderstorm. It wouldn't have been safe for them to fly, and the visibility would have been very limited at best. Within about 20 minutes of their initial arrival, other police officers joined, as well as the local sheriff for Robertson County to assist in the search. After a quick collaboration, each of the officers fanned out to search their assigned zones of the woods. Another sergeant did catch a glimpse of the suspects and saw that they were moving deeper in the woods, but this glimpse was at a pretty good distance. Officer Filden and another officer got in the police car and went about 1,000 feet down the road, which is the logical point for the suspects to have emerged based on where the sergeant saw them. Once their police car stopped, they caught a glimpse of the two suspects. The police officers could tell, though, that the two juveniles were not sure that they'd actually been spotted by police, and they were crouching down about 20 yards away. Officer Filden heard something behind him, and when he rolled around, he realized they were getting some unexpected backup. It was a very friendly, very energetic border collie who had been watching all of the activities. And he probably also didn't care why they were running in the woods. He just thought it might be a chance for some attention and possibly a treat or two. Border Collie was running circles around Officer Filden and the other officer that had accompanied him. All of a sudden, one of the suspects called out, "Don't sick no dog on us. Don't turn him loose." Shortly after that, the other suspect said, "He won't bite us, will he?" Now, Officer Filden and his companion wanted to take full advantage of this situation, and they didn't wait for a second. The officer who had accompanied Officer Fulton's name was John, and he called out to the suspects and that the dog would bite if they told him to. Further teased the suspect, saying, we haven't fed him since yesterday, and he's pretty hungry, if you know what I mean. Now, the border collie was oblivious to what was going on. All he was trying to do was get some attention. John called out the suspects again and said, "Hey, I'm not giving you a second warning. You guys have a choice to either come out or we're going to send our dog in to get you." The suspects stood up, and at first, the officers weren't quite sure if they were going to make a move toward them or run away from them. But as the boys were debating their fate, the dog began to whine. Officer Fielding could see out of the corner of his eye that the border collie was laying on the ground with his paws up in the air, hoping for a belly rub. "Lassie, prepare," he said to the dog. Hearing the sternness in his voice, the dog jumped up to attention. Now, whatever thoughts that the suspects had about fleeing disappeared in that instant. They began making their way to the officers, but they kept an eye on that dog with every step that they took. Officer Fielding instructed the boys to get on the ground face down with their hands behind their back, and the boys immediately complied. At this point, the dog figured out that Mark and John were too busy to pay him a lot of attention. So he turned his attention to the boys on the ground. He wandered over to one of the suspects, immediately licking him on the face. The young man was in a panic, jerking his face away from the collie, saying, "Man, please get that dog off of me. He's gonna eat me alive." Dog just stood there, confused over the reaction at his gesture of attention, and Officer Fielding just laughed. Once the boys were in the back seat, they fully confessed to all of the home break-ins in the area. They said they were making their way from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, when they ran out of gas. Since they didn't have any cash, they decided breaking into homes was a good way to earn some and earn it quick. But it turns out South Carolina was looking for them as well, because the blazer that they were using was stolen from there. And they wanted both of the men, one was 16, one was 17, back for questioning. Mark Fielding was quoted as saying, if he ever questioned whether or not a dog could be man's best friend, it was settled right then and there. Well, at least until a cat showed him it could strike fear in the hearts of criminals like that border collie did. They nicknamed the collie Officer Lassie. Well done, Officer Lassie. Well done. If you enjoyed our conversation today, I would love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any thoughts or suggestions on future videos, please leave them in the comments below. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are in the world. Take care.